In this video, we are going to take a look at using the Breon Telematics Lone Worker app for iPhone for safety monitoring. This is an updated app which was previously known as Breon LWSA. This updated app has some additional features which your organisation may choose to use in addition to the core functions shown in this training video. The app continues to be very straightforward and easy to use and well worth it to increase your safety and minimise the risk of being without assistance when you need it. So let's get started. To install the app, it can be downloaded from the App Store in the usual way. In the App Store search bar, you can type in Breon Telematics Lone Worker, and you can see the app icon there. It's blue with a white shield, person and Wi-Fi symbol and is labelled Breon Telematics Lone Worker. So we can tap that to download. And we want to allow notifications and agree and continue. But before we go ahead and log into the app, I just want to show you how to check that the appropriate settings are selected for the app in iPhone settings. So find and tap iPhone settings. It's the grey cog icon there. Once settings is open, scroll down and find your list of apps, and then find the Breon Telematics Lone Worker Safety app. It's there with the blue icon. So we'll just open that up. On the settings for the app, we want to make sure that the background app refresh and cellular data are both selected, so buttons to the right showing green. Once you first log into the app, it will ask permission to allow location services whilst using the app. And once you do that, you'll see another field here about location services being selected. So it should always be selected in iPhone settings under the app. Okay, so now let's run through opening and logging into the app. Locate the app on your phone. Once again, it's blue with the white person, Wi-Fi and shield symbol labelled Breon Telematics. So we can just tap to open that. And then we come to the login screen. So we can enter in our unique username and password here. If you have an inReach device, your username and password will be the same as for that device. Safety monitoring activities will be connected between the inReach device and your iPhone. Logging in will access your account, your name, phone number, and the safety monitoring settings assigned to you via safety templates. Logging into the Breon LWSA app is not the same as signing in to start safety monitoring and check-in activities, which we'll look at in a moment. Logging in just makes sure that the correct authorised person is linked to their safety monitoring settings in the system and to their inReach enabled safety monitoring if that applies. So I will go ahead and enter my username and password to log in. And we have logged in. So now that the app's open, we've logged in, you will see the sign on direction screen. On this screen, there's the word menu on the top left corner, which accesses the menu by either tapping on that word or swiping left to right. There is an instruction to please sign on before accessing the dashboard. And there is a button below that labelled Open Sign-On Management Page. So you must sign on to start safety monitoring activities via this sign-on management page. There's two ways to get to that page, either by tapping the Sign On Management Page button from this screen or via menu. So if we tap on menu and look at the second option there, Sign On Management. So both ways will take you to the Sign On Management page. You won't be able to access any dashboard functions until you sign on, and you won't be safety monitored, tracked or prompted to make check-ins until you sign on. So again, to activate the safety monitoring service, you must sign on via the Sign On Management page. Also, when you shut down monitoring services, you must sign off via the Sign On Management page. So remembering to sign on and off is very important. Before we do sign on, let's have a quick look at a couple of other functions under the menu. So I'll tap on menu. First, we have dashboard. If you try and access the dashboard before you sign on, it will just redirect you to sign on. We'll look at dashboard after we sign on. Dashboard is from where you make check-ins, assist, hazard monitoring and SOS requests. Next we have sign on management. We've covered that already. Next we have settings. So we'll tap settings. The contact name and phone number. This should display the name of the person being safety monitored and their phone number. If you are being safety monitored for a shift, this is your name and the phone number you can be contacted on during that shift. This is the phone number that will be called first if you miss a check-in or do not sign off. So it is the first action that occurs to check your safety. If these details are not correct, you may need to log off using the button at the bottom right of this screen. Close the app, reopen the app and enter your unique username and password. You can also manually enter the name and phone number of the person being safety monitored from this settings screen via the phone. The next field we have there is select a safety template. This shows the template being used for monitoring the person who is logged on, and there is the option here to tap and choose from a menu of alternative safety templates. So you can see the wheel menu there at the bottom of the screen. Safety templates contain the protocols for safety monitoring, including how a safety event will be managed for the user during a particular shift. So you can see as I select some of the different safety templates that a number of fields change there. So the safety timer and sign-off time also change. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for now, I'll just go back and select my test template. So next we have location safety tracking interval. This field allows you to set the frequency with which your location data is pinned and mapped in the Breon system during safety monitoring. A standard setting would be 5 minutes. If you become separated from your device at some point or if some other issue arises, this mapping history provides us with helpful information as to where you are likely to be located in the case of a safety event. So you can change that location tracking interval using those buttons, plus and minus. We'll leave it at 5 minutes. Below that is safety timer. Safety timer shows the time period set for required check-ins. If set at 20 minutes, the person being monitored will be required to check in within successive 20-minute periods. This time period variable corresponds to the safety template selected, and you can check in at any time within the time period. And then when you do check in, the next time period will begin. Then we have sign off time, which shows 1 hour on my settings. Sign off time indicates the length of time that safety monitoring and check-ins will continue for after sign-on has occurred. So it sets the time that sign-off will be required by. It's important to remember to sign off by the sign-off time to avoid activating a safety event. Signing off will close safety monitoring activities. It's really important to remember to sign off before putting your device away. So again, the sign-off time period and corresponding sign-off time is set by the time of sign-on and the duration specified in this field. It doesn't necessarily correspond to the time your shift ends. Sign off is also via the sign-on management page, which we looked at before. You can sign off and sign back on at any time. Just be aware that this will reset the sign-off time. So if you sign off and back on in the middle of the day, you may have check-in and sign-off requirements that occur very late into the day. So remember to sign off at the end of your workday or when safety monitoring is no longer required. As with sign-on, log-in, sign-off is different to logging off. You might log off. You can see that button bottom right. You might log off via this screen if you are finished using an iPhone which is shared. This allows another person to enter their unique account details, their username and password, when logging into the Breon LWSA app to start safety monitoring activities relevant to them and their InReach device. When you've checked settings on this screen, you can tap Save and OK. So that is settings. Next, we'll have a look at Sign On. So to look at Sign On, let's go to the Sign On Management page by tapping Menu and selecting Sign On Management. Remember, this page is accessed by tapping the Sign On Management page button on the Sign On direction screen or via selecting Menu as we just did and the Sign On Management option. On the Sign On Management page now, you can see the message to sign on to start safety monitoring, and you can see the contact name and number of the person that will be safety monitored by the Breon system. So we'll tap Sign On. Okay, we have now signed on and arrived at the check-in screen within the dashboard. We have the dashboard functions along the top. We are currently in the check-in function. We have the instruction to check in by 10:38 a.m. to avoid a safety event. We also have a countdown below the egg timer symbol, which shows time remaining until check-in to avoid a safety event. So once you have signed on, this countdown timer will show the time period selecting in settings that we just looked at under safety timer. Again, this is initially specified by your safety monitoring template. I want to emphasize that it is really important to avoid activating a safety event when there is no safety event. So it is important to check in either before or at the time when check-in is required. You can check in at any time during that countdown period. You don't have to wait until the end of the period. It will simply reset the countdown to the next check-in required. Let's look at that now. So I'm just going to tap check-in. And you can see that it resets the countdown timer and also recalibrates the time shown in the instruction check-in by 10:39 a.m. now. Above the egg timer symbol, we also have the option to enter a note prior to check-in. This note could be about your activity or observations or conditions relevant to safety monitoring. So we can just type in a note there and then press check in again. We also have some text in blue that reads asset name, current status, J&G normal. This shows that J&G, that's my username, is logged in, signed on, and currently monitored as being in a normal status. Here it could also read asset name, current status, J&G check-in, meaning that I'm required to check in because I've missed a check-in. It could also read J&G assist or hazard or SOS if I've made those requests via the dashboard menu at the top of the screen. So looking at that blue text is a quick way to confirm that the system has registered a request or received a sign-in or check-in. Before we have a look at some of the other functions on the dashboard, I'll just talk about notifications. So you may or may not receive notifications when you are being safety monitored and you sign on or check in. So sometimes the protocol is set so that a supervisor or team leader receives some or all of those notifications. They can appear as an SMS message at the top of the screen, or they may be sent via email. I don't have notifications enabled here, but the notification will detail the person's name being safety monitored, what safety monitoring action has occurred, the time that the action was received by the system or missed by the system if you've missed a check-in, and importantly, location data represented in Google Maps. Okay, so let's have a look at the other functions on the dashboard seen along the top of the screen. Next to check-in, we have assist. Let's tap on assist. This is for a non-emergency assistance response, which is a call from the Safety Monitoring Centre to the phone number logged and listed on the settings screen. The text appearing on the assist screen explains this. It directs you to enter an optional note about your situation and then tap the Request Assist button to receive a call from the Safety Monitoring Centre. When you tap the assist button, request assistance button, it will change to a cancel request button, so you can easily change the request here also. Also on the assist screen, your monitoring status will be shown as we first saw on the check-in screen, so it also shows here asset name, current status, J&G assist. So we know that I'm logged on and that the system has received my request for assistance. You can also see there's an enter optional note field, so you can enter text there. I'll just cancel that assistance request and show you that you can enter a note there if required before you tap the request assistance button. Okay, so I'll cancel that assistance request. And next we'll have a look at hazard, which is next to assist. So at the top of the screen, next to assist, I'll tap hazard. The hazard option provides for hazard monitoring, which is a different kind of a higher level of safety monitoring check-in and response. We can see some text on the hazard screen explaining that hazard monitoring can be requested here, and importantly that a hazard monitoring duration that times out becomes an SOS event with emergency services deployed. So let's have a look at requesting hazard monitoring and selecting a duration. To request hazard monitoring, first we select the duration time period for the check-in to occur by. So I tap on that field where the 30 minutes appears, and we can see a wheel menu at the end of the screen with 30, 60, 90 and 120 minute options. A high-risk environment might lead you to select a short hazard duration time period. We can also enter a note describing the details of the hazard situation. For example, in a fire area. Autocorrect hasn't helped me there. Okay, and then we can tap Start Hazard Monitoring, the blue button at the bottom of the screen. And then that starts the hazard monitoring timer below the egg timer symbol. So this also changes the person's current monitored status as hazard in the Breon system. You can see that's confirmed in that blue text which says asset name, current status, J&G hazard. And we can see the hazard monitoring countdown timer below the egg timer symbol showing the time period selected. We selected 30 minutes and it's counting down there. Cancelling the hazard monitoring service, it serves the same kind of function as making a check-in. We know that you're okay. However, if you do not cancel hazard monitoring within the time period set and shown on the counter, if you allow it to time out, the Breon system will move your status immediately to SOS and deploy emergency services. So if you miss this particular kind of check-in, you will be escalated to an emergency response straight away. So it's very important to tap Cancel Hazard Monitoring within the time period where there is no safety event, no emergency situation. When you cancel hazard monitoring, your check-in safety timer, which appears on the check-in screen, let's have a look at that by tapping check-in. It will have reset and restarted, so we can see it's counting down from that 20-minute time period selected in settings. So it'll just go back to a normal safety monitoring settings. Okay, we can move on and have a look at the SOS capability now by tapping on SOS at the top. Again, the screen has the same format as the previous two functions. Text describing that an SOS can be requested from here, that emergency services will then be deployed and contact attempts made by operations. Again, you may enter a note about your SOS call, and then we can tap on the SOS button, that blue button at the bottom of the screen. Again, you may be receiving SMS notifications when you make these calls and requests, just depending on what is set for you in your safety template. You can also cancel the SOS request once made, as we see that blue button now has changed to Cancel SOS. Before we do that, you can also see that in the blue text above the optional note field, it says asset name, current status, J&G SOS, which confirms that the system has received that SOS call and that your safety monitoring status has changed to SOS. If you do use the SOS button, the Operations Centre will try and contact you and open a line of communication to refine and resolve the safety event, always keeping abreast of the situation and your welfare. If you cancel the SOS, just like when you cancel hazard monitoring, let's do that now. You will return to normal safety monitoring protocols current status normal. So we can see that on the screen, asset name, current status, J&G normal. And we can see that your check-in timer will have reset to that check-in period that it's normally set for. So we'll just go ahead to the check-in screen and see that that has reset. Okay, let's just have a look at signing off from safety monitoring. Again, that's done from the Sign On Management page. So we can tap on Menu, top left. We can tap on Sign On Management, and we can see the page there has the option at the bottom of the screen, which states Sign Off. And we also have text there that explains when you sign off, all monitoring will stop. To view your dashboard, you will need to sign on again. So let's just tap to sign off. And we're back to the Sign On Management page. So finally, just take some time to review any parts of this video that you need to familiarize yourself with the app so you can use it in a very automatic way as is needed in an emergency situation. Always remember to log on, check your settings, sign on, check in as required, and sign off at the very end of the safety monitoring period. Thanks for watching our brief look at the Breon Lone Worker Safety application, Breon LWSA for iPhone. Thanks.